Woo! I appreciate Pastor filling in the last minute for me last week. I had something hit me Saturday night. I don't know what it was, but it was... I'm back to being almost human, so we'll just call that good. If you would keep my wife in your prayers, she put her back out a couple of weeks ago and was just getting where she was getting along pretty good, and then yesterday she... if I remember, I wasn't home, but she was carrying some laundry and got her feet tangled up in a blanket and fell down. We ended up in the emergency room last night. Nothing's broke. They did some x-rays, and they told her that probably she's got a lot of pain. But it was kind of the typical next step would be MRI, but they said give it 7 to 10 days and see if it's improving or not, and we'll go from there. So anyway, she's learning how to walk on crutches for the first time in her life, I think, that I know of anyway. Anyhow, that's been our exciting week. All right, back to our lesson. We're in Exodus chapter 7, going through the plagues now, and we're seeing how, I won't go back and go over it all, I've probably done it more than enough times, but God's promise to Abraham that his people, who there was no people, he had no children yet, but his people, which would become a nation, would be captive in a strange land and would serve them for 400 years, and then God would deliver them. And we're seeing how God has put all that together to fulfill that promise. So Moses was born in Egypt, left, spent 40 years in Midian as taking care of his father-in-law's sheep. He's come back now. He's confronted Pharaoh several times. And we're going through the plagues. The first plague was the serpent, which I don't even know if you'd call that a plague, but the rod became a serpent. The magicians came along, duplicated that. Keep that in mind, because Satan he's a good imitator of God to a point, and I think that's going to be brought out real good in this next passage we're going to go through. Anyway, they went through that, and Pharaoh hardened his heart. No, it says, and Pharaoh hardened Pharaoh's heart. Some of the time Pharaoh hardened his own heart, and sometimes God hardened Pharaoh's heart. But it happened. I'm trying to keep track as we go through how many times that happens. I'm just making myself a little note in the margin of my Bible. But God's whole plan is to bring them to a point where they're going to let Israel go. And, okay, now the second plague we went over 2 weeks ago, where the water was turned to blood. In fact, we're kind of in the middle of that. We're in chapter 7. I think we left off with verse 22, but let's start in 20. And, morning, Grace. Moses and Aaron did so as the Lord had commanded, and he lifted up the rod and smote the waters that were in the river in the sight of Pharaoh and in the sight of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river were turned to blood. Remember, that was their main water source. Egypt was built on the Nile River, the main cities anyway. And verse 21 says, and the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank. Ever smelled a dead fish? I will share it with you. I have firsthand experience with that. I raise some animals and have them processed, and I go up to the Upper Peninsula and get fish, and I take all that to Kalamazoo on Saturdays and sell it at farmers market. A couple years ago, I got home on a Saturday, and I unpacked everything, and I have a cardboard divider in this big cooler, and there's a couple grooves for it, and so you can put two different things in there and keep them separate. Well, I got home and I put everything away, and I think about 3 days later I opened that cooler, and there was this little piece of fish that was under that cardboard divider that I didn't see. I don't need to tell you anymore. I'm just saying the Bible doesn't lie. The river stank. Verse 21 again, and the fish that was in the river died, and the river stank, and the Egyptians could not drink the water of the river, and there was blood throughout all the land of Egypt. Verse 22, here's where we'll pick up from 2 weeks ago. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments. Here's the second time that they were able to at least partially duplicate, and I can't question it because it says they did so. Same thing back when with the rod turned into a serpent. They did so. The only difference was not Pharaoh. I'm going to get names all messed up. Moses' rod that turned into a serpent ate the magicians. So, not the magicians, but the magicians' rods are serpents. So the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments, and like I said, Satan tries to be an imitator of God. That's one of his tactics. And at times he can pull off some pretty miraculous things. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened. I believe this is the third time that it says either Pharaoh's heart was hardened, Pharaoh hardened his heart, or Pharaoh hardened Pharaoh's heart. I'm going to say that backwards all day today. Neither did he hearken unto them as the Lord had said. And Pharaoh turned and went into his house. Neither did he set his heart to this also. How does God... I think in almost every situation, what does God speak to? I know I'm asking that in a way that there's got to be a better way. God speaks to our hearts. Does everybody understand that? How God just speaks and it's in your head, but it's really your heart that he's after. And I think that's the case here with Pharaoh, but we can push back and resist God. And here's an unsaved guy from a pagan land. Neither did he set his heart to this also. He was having nothing to do with it. And all the Egyptians digged around about the river for water to drink, for they could not drink of the water of the river. Does anybody have an opinion on this? And it doesn't change what the Bible says. It's not real plain to me. They dug for water to drink. Did they find any? I just wonder. There's no way we're going to know. They could not drink of the water of the river. And you can only go so long without water, right? Verse 25 tells us in 7 days were fulfilled after that the Lord had smitten the river. So apparently things went back to the water being drinkable. Whether they found any when they dug or not, I don't think they did, but he put that in there for a reason. Maybe they're just that desperate. We're going to try to find some water. So anyway, there's the water turning to blood. That's the second plague, and we'll get into chapter 8. And Moses, and the Lord spake unto Pharaoh, unto Moses. I still got brain fog from whatever it is I had this last week. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs. Now here's probably the most powerful, influential man in the world, Pharaoh. He saw the rod turned into a serpent. He's seen the water turn to blood. And then it turned back. Or we're making that assumption, but it had to. They had to drink. Frogs. Is that a threatening? Would you think that as being a very threatening thing to a man in the position of Pharaoh? It doesn't sound like it. I could almost, and I'm speculating on this, but I could almost see him laughing when Moses tells him that. This is early in the plagues, and his heart is getting harder and harder. But anyway, frogs is not a very threatening thing, unless, we'll just keep reading. And the rivers shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thy bedchamber, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thine ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. And the frog shall come up both on thee, and upon thy people, and upon thy servants. And the Lord spake unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch forth thine hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. When you first think of frogs, like I said, it doesn't seem like too big a deal, but they're kneading troughs. Bread was a big deal, and they made it all by hand, and the places where they made their bread for the day, can you see someone working on that day's bread and frogs are jumping into it? Again, that's not, it's not like scorpions or something that's going to kill you, but this is a nuisance type of thing, which is understated. Now the magicians come along again, third time in a row. And the magicians did so with their enchantments and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. So far, the magicians who are, I don't even want to try to give a big explanation for this. Can I say black magic? Do you know what I'm talking about? Magic in general. I know Bruce could explain this much better than I could. What you do is called sleight of hand, right? You're not trying to make something happen that doesn't really happen. Something that can be explained. Okay, thank you. That's what I'm looking for. These guys have gone beyond that. They're dipping into some power that shouldn't be dabbled with by people. It's alive and well today. It's everywhere. But they did so with their enchantments. That's the key, their enchantments. And brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. Look at Matthew 7 just for a second. And just one verse. Verse 22. Many will say unto me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils? I'm not trying to say that has anything to do with the enchantments that we see back in Exodus. And in thy name done many wonderful works. They were doing some things that appeared to be unexplainable. And verse 23, I lied. I said one verse. It's two. Then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. There's things that happen in New Testament times and today's times that by people that don't know the Lord. That's why I wanted to go back and look at that. And they want to take credit for it being something good. I don't know if that's related to this very well or not, but I skipped something. I want to go back. Let's go back to right where we started in verse 22 of chapter 7. First look at Proverbs 29. In verse 1, and this is, I skipped this back when I should have brought it up, but verse 22 in chapter 7 of Exodus, and the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments, and Pharaoh's heart was hardened, neither did he hearken unto them, as the Lord had said. And then we saw in verse 23 that neither did he set his heart unto this. In Proverbs 22 and verse 1, he that being often reproved hardeneth his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy. We're going to see that happen to Pharaoh. He's going to constantly harden his heart towards God, and he will be destroyed. And that without remedy. That's a big warning to people. Also, if you would, look at 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Just to kind of support some of this stuff we're seeing in Exodus. Second Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 9. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. Back to the magicians and what they did. Lying wonders. Morning, Carson. I have no idea. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go back to where we left off now. Chapter 8, verse 10, and he said, tomorrow. Oh, I skipped a couple verses. Chapter 8, verse 7, and the magicians did so with their enchantments and brought up frogs from upon the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, entreat the Lord. It almost sounds like we're getting somewhere. Entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I will let the people go that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord. If you don't know the whole story, it almost sounds like God's starting to get through to him. We're going to find out soon that it's not happening, it's not going to happen. But I'm not going to say this. I'm going to just speak for me. I have foolishly tried to make deals with God before. This is where Pharaoh's at. I don't like what's going on. Okay, if you take away the problems, I'll do what God says. That's a cheap Dave paraphrase. But as we read on, we know that his heart isn't turning towards God. Verse 9, and Moses said unto Pharaoh, glory over me. When shall I entreat for thee? Yeah, okay. I think Moses is hopeful here. And for thy servants and for thy people to destroy the frogs from thee and thy houses, that they may remain in the river. And he said, tomorrow. Any thoughts on why he said tomorrow and not now? I haven't got a clue. Haven't got a clue. But I think Moses is going to remember that because it's going to come up again. But he said tomorrow. And Moses said, be it according to thy word. That here's a very important statement. that thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord our God. That's important for every person who's ever been alive. And back in chapter 7, verse 5, you don't have to turn back there if you don't want to. Verse 4 says, But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt, and bring forth mine armies, and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments, and the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. Through all this chaos and mess and disaster and hardening of hearts and everything else, that's always in God's purpose. That Egypt, that Cass County, Michigan, and anywhere in between may know that he's God. That's God's purpose, to show, to reveal himself to mankind, that they would accept him. He's always doing that. Verse 11, back in chapter 8. And the frogs shall depart from thee, and from thy houses, and from thy servants, and from thy people. They shall remain in the river only, back where they belong. Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs which he had brought against, against Pharaoh. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, out of the fields, and they were gathered together upon heaps, and the land stank. Not to dwell on the stink thing, but dead animals. Egypt's kind of a warm climate. It wasn't pleasant. Even though the plague was over, the frogs were not jumping in their bread dough anymore, but there's piles of them all over, and they stank. But this is such a picture of the human heart. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart. Again, I'm not gonna say everyone here has done that. I'm speculating, probably so, but I have. Saw that there was respite, that the pressure was taken off. He hardened his heart and hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. Remember in Hebrews where it talks about, it mentions don't harden your heart as in the day of provocation. I think that's the word. And it's not actually talking about Pharaoh here, but it's talking about the nation of Israel after they left Pharaoh during the 40 years they were in the wilderness. But he says that, don't harden your heart. But let's look at Psalm 95. This is where he actually said it. In Hebrews, that was just looking back, quoting Old Testament. Psalm 95. Oh, where do I want to start it? Let's start right at verse 1. It's not that long. Come, let us sing unto the Lord. Let us make a joyful noise to the rock of our salvation. Let us come before his presence with thanksgiving and make a joyful noise unto him with psalms. For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods. How did he say it? Just stay right there. Stay right there. We just read it. That thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord our God. We just read that in Exodus. Okay, back to Psalms. For the Lord is a great God and a great King above all gods. In his hand are the deep places of the earth. The strength of the hills are his also. The sea is his, and he made it. His hands formed the dry land. Oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord our Maker. For he is our God, and we are the people of his pasture and the sheep of his hand. Today, if you will hear his voice, here's the quote that Hebrews makes. After knowing all these things, today, if you will hear his voice, harden not your heart, as in the provocation, and as in the day of temptation in the wilderness, when your fathers tempted me, proved me, and saw my work. 40 years long was I grieved with this generation, and said, it is a people that do err in their heart. There's the heart again. Just like Pharaoh, just like Egypt, just like mankind today. And they have not known my ways, unto whom I swear in my wrath that they should not enter into my rest. Hardening your heart's a dangerous thing. I think we're all aware of that. What's the opposite of hardening a heart? Softening a heart. Yeah. Pardon? A humble heart. Yep. How does God aid us in having a soft heart? Through grace. Hi, Cassandra.
I was going to say through trials.
You what?
I was going to say through trials because that's how he humbles us.
Trials humble us? Yeah, he has a lot of different ways. A lot of different ways. But this is something I'm stuck on. The definition of grace, the divine influence on the heart. That's how he softens our heart. And trials can be grace. If it brings us closer to God, trials can be the grace of God. Quite often they are. Almost getting off topic now. Okay, verse 15, right? Chapter 8. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart and hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses, say unto Aaron, stretch out thy rod and smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so. And Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and in beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. We're going to stop there for a second. Can you imagine? We saw frogs, we saw water turned into blood, dead frogs laying around, dead fish, everything was stinking, a rod turned into a serpent. Lice everywhere. None of these so far have been big threatening things on a small scale, but when God uses them and uses them in a big way, oh, that just popped into my mind. I don't know if I should say it or not. Couldn't that get under your skin? Bruce got it. I mean, that'd be rough. It just would. Verse 18. I wanted to stop before verse 18. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. Yes, Cassandra? Sure.
At some point, God, before he starts killing the animals and stuff, he separates them. Did the children of Israel have to go through the lice and
I was going to bring that question up when it talked about dividing, but since you did, I can't say. She brought up a great question. I don't know if we'll get to it today, but I think the next plague after this, or the I don't remember where it starts, but we'll see it, where God separates out the land of Goshen, and he says that for that particular plague, that they don't get it. And she asked the question, did they have to go through all this thing along with the people? I'm going to assume because he told us at a particular time that he separated them out, that up until then they did, but I may be wrong. I can't say for sure. I can't say for sure. But I have been wondering the same thing, without a doubt.
But it also just gives you the thought, sometimes when God's dealing with something else, you may have to go through with them for a period.
Yes. Yeah. I think we can all testify to that. We have gone through things that we really have nothing to do with, but God's using that in a big way, in a big picture. We even talked about that early on when we saw that Israel, the nation of Israel now, who started off as 70 people, they got brought in by Joseph into the land of Goshen, and then everything went wrong. We're never told that they did anything to deserve that. So, it's not always, there's not always a good explanation, is there? There is, God has one, but he doesn't always tell us what it is. Okay, verse 18, the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. This is something new. So far, they've been using their enchantments, which is, witchcraft, sorcery, all those things come out of the same bucket. They're at a point now where they can't duplicate what God's doing.
Why is that?
Why is that?
God gives life. These magicians couldn't do that.
Yeah, because the dust became lice, right? Is that what it... I think. Smite the dust of the land that it may become lice. The frogs were already there. He multiplied them. Can't produce life. They're out of... This plague moved out of what can be replicated in Satan's territory into something only God can do. And Gail said it perfectly. Can't produce life. Only God can produce life. They couldn't do it. Yeah, Bruce?
Don't you find it interesting that they wanted to produce more? They produce more frogs, they produce more lice. Wouldn't you think they would want to go the other way?
That they'd want to get rid of them? Yeah, it sure seems like it, doesn't it? Or turn the blood back into water. I'm getting thirsty. I'm tired of digging holes trying to find water. Where's the magicians at when you need them? Yeah, you'd think so. But you know what? When you get so entrenched in sin, and I'm saying this from experience, when you get so entrenched in sin, you're not thinking straight. Yes.
I just always think that they thought that their gods were more powerful, and so that it was like a competition between their gods, right? Because our God's gonna see we can still do this.
Yeah, now all of a sudden we can't. Yeah, who's winning the competition? Yes.
I always thought what they had to do is get clean water just to turn it to blood. That made no sense to me. They would have had to dug it up, got clean water, bring it to, and then made it blood. It makes no sense to me.
Again, are they thinking clearly? Not really, but they're so desperate to prove that they can do what God did. So desperate that they're actually bringing hurt upon themselves rather than trying to go the other direction.
It's scary how prideful humanity is.
I got to repeat that. And you're so right. It's scary how prideful humanity is. And it is. We see it. We see it all the time. All the time. Okay, the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not. Excuse me. So there were lice upon man and upon beast. And the magicians said unto Pharaoh, I got to give the magicians a little bit of credit here. This is the finger of God. How much did they understand? I don't think a lot. But they knew that, and I don't know how all the enchantments and sorceries and witchcraft and all that stuff works, but I know it's real. But people that are involved in that apparently know. These guys did anyway. Let's just stick with what this says. I don't want to speculate on that. They understood something very important when they couldn't. We're limited. We've did everything we know how to do. This one's out of our league. And they at least gave credit. I'm assuming they're using God in a generic sense. But they had enough sense to say this is the finger of God. What kind of effect did that have on Pharaoh? And Pharaoh's heart was hardened. And he hearkened not unto them, even when the magicians said, this is the finger of God. And that, I guess if you want to twist that around a little bit, that could have been their way of saying, you might want to pay attention to this. But he didn't. And he hearkened not unto them as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses, rise up early in the morning and stand before Pharaoh. Whoa, just a minute. I missed something. All right, I don't even remember what it said, but let's look at 2 Timothy 3 just for a second. Apparently there's something there I wanted to. The magicians did with their enchantments so to bring forth lice, but they could not. So there are lice upon the earth. 2 Timothy 3, verse 7. Okay. Now the light went on when I saw the verse. Ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Now that verse is not talking about back in Exodus. It's an example on people that refuse to follow God. But ever learning, and because of their hard heart, I'll stick that in there, never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. Yes, Cassandra?
Before verse 5, the second half of verse, denying the power, having form of God, but denying the power thereof. They're denying God's power.
You're back in 2 Timothy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's verse 5.
Okay, let me go back there again. Yeah, that whole passage leading up to that, I think from the beginning of the chapter is all. Yeah, let's look at that first few verses. Start right in verse 1. Know this also, that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves, I wrote a note next to verse 1 through verse 7. Years and years ago. Is this happening now? Yes, it is. So as we read through here, think of the days back in Exodus, but think of how much they probably have increased up until the days we're in now. This know also that in the last days perilous times shall come, for men shall be lovers of their own selves. Can we check that one? I'm not going to say that each time. You'll get tired of me saying it. Covetous, boasters, proud. Carol mentioned the pride of mankind. Blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, without natural affection, truce breakers, false accusers, incontinent, fierce, despisers of those that are good. Boy, there's been an increase of that. You know, that's in today's, how do I want to say it? If you want to get your head chopped off, try to do something right. Just, I don't mean literally your head chopped off, but if you want to be attacked, try to do something right. Yes, Cassandra? Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not even just our own self plus other adults in our lives helping them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's multiplied. I think.
It is. It's, yeah, this. Does anybody know what a turbocharger or a supercharger does to an engine? I'll give you a real brief, cheap explanation. An internal combustion engine has to have fuel and air mixed to combust. And a turbocharger or a supercharger forces more air into an engine and gives it a whole lot more horsepower. This passage here has been going on forever that we're reading in 2 Thessalonians. But it's being supercharged right now in these days. You can just see it. You know, look around the room, the majority of us have been around a while. I'm not trying to date anybody, we just have. We've seen this stuff just grow at a crazy rate. Incredible. Despisers of those that are good. Verse 4. Traitors. Heady. Traitors. Don't want to get political, so I'm not gonna, but just think about that word and what's been going on. Traitors. Heady, high-minded, lovers of pleasure more than lovers of God. Here's the verse I think Cassandra got us going on this at. Having a form of godliness, but denying the power thereof. From such turn away. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead silly women laden with sin, led away with diverse lust, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. And like my little note there on the side says, is this happening now? Sure seems like it. I'm not trying to be negative, folks. I'm just trying to be realistic. We have a lot of good things going on. God is working in hearts. God's doing his job quite well. But we see things that he said are going to happen, happening. Back to Exodus. I got to find my spot again. Better turn a page. Better turn a couple pages. My brain's in neutral today. I apologize for that. Okay, we're in chapter 8. We're about, they told Pharaoh this is the finger of God. We did a verse or two after that. The Lord said unto Moses, rise up early in the morning, stand before Pharaoh, verse 20. Lo, he cometh forth to the water. And say unto him, thus saith the Lord, let my people go that they may serve me. Pharaoh's heard this now several times. When he sees Moses coming, it's almost like he knows what's going to come out of his mouth. Else if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, unto thy houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground whereon they are. And here's where he makes the distinction. And up till this point, he hasn't said this. So I guess, in your own mind, if you think Israel has gone through all this up until this point or not, from what Scripture tells us, we can't say for sure. I'm kind of leaning towards they did. God can clear that up someday, but verse 22, and I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end thou may knowest that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. Here again, who's he showing? He's showing himself to Egypt and to Israel. He wants people to know who he is. This is without a doubt the first time this protection for the land of Goshen was mentioned. And verse 23, and I will put a division between my people and thy people. I didn't go back and find any verses to really support that, but I think we're familiar with how God works. Should we be separate from the world? Do we live, what's the phrase? Live in the world, in the world, but not of the world. Not always an easy thing to do. But that they would know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. Put a division. And Moses says, remember when he asked Pharaoh, I think it was the frogs, when should I take the frogs away? And he said, tomorrow. I don't know if this has anything to do with it. But he says at the end of verse 23, tomorrow shall this sign be. No, that's not. Forget I said that. I'm thinking of something different. I just saw the tomorrow and my mind went. Verse 24, and the Lord did so, and there came a grievous swarm of flies unto the house of Pharaoh, and unto his servants' houses, and unto all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupt by reason of the swarm of flies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and for Aaron and said, go ye, sacrifice to your God in the land. What did Moses say pretty clearly? That we may leave and go 3 days' journey into the wilderness. So here's Pharaoh still kind of trying to make a deal. I don't like these flies. They're driving me nuts. I'm tired of itching from the lice. I'm tired of not having good water to drink. The smell has drove me nuts. I've lost the magicians. Go sacrifice to God in the land, but don't leave. That isn't what God said. Okay? And Pharaoh called, go in the land, and Moses said, it is not meant so to do. For we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our God. Lo, shall we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes? Will they not stone us? When we sacrifice unto the Lord, that's can I just say offensive to Egypt? They have their own gods. They're false gods. They're nothing. Moses is kind of trying to reason, I think. If we did that here, the Egyptians, they'd rebel and stone us. We got to leave. Not to mention the fact that that's what God told us to do. Let's see what happens. We will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness and sacrifice to the Lord our God as he shall command us. And Pharaoh said, I will let you go, that you may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness. Only you shall not go very far away. Entreat for me. I don't know what he meant by that. I'm assuming less than 3 days' journey. I think we're pretty safe with that. And Moses said, behold, I go out from thee, and I will entreat the Lord that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. Here's the tomorrow. I should have said this. Tomorrow. You want to play games? We'll do this tomorrow. But let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully anymore in not letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord. Moses went out from Pharaoh and entreated the Lord. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and he removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people. There remained not one. And here we go again. We'll close with this. And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go.
I think Moses wisely said tomorrow, because I think that otherwise Pharaoh had no idea that he entreated the Lord. So if he would have said for the flies to go away and the frogs on the day that Pharaoh asked, it would give Pharaoh the impression that Moses had this power.
That's a possibility, that he put that 1 day delay in, so
And that would have maybe been an iniquity between Moses and God at that point.
possibility.
Self-serving.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's possible. Yes.
I just wanted to point out in verse 28, that Pharaoh actually asked Moses to retreat from God. He asked him to pray to God for us. So he's starting to recognize the power of God, and yet he's still stubborn and won't let the people go. It amazes me that he recognizes the power of God in this little small way, but won't let the people go.
Mm-hmm. Have you...
But it's economic.
He recognizes that God. He recognizes God.
Yeah, he does. And how well he understands who God is, I have no idea. But just that, you brought up a good point. He understands that there's some power there. Because Moses has done things up to that point that demonstrates that. And he asked him to entreat the Lord, but he still won't let him go. Is that familiar in things that we see today? Just all, going back to nothing changes. Mankind does not change. When someone who, I don't know if it's a good example or not, and we need to close anyway, but someone is going through hard times for whatever reason. I'm not putting any blame anywhere, or maybe has been sick for a while, but someone who doesn't know the Lord is going through something tough. They're all about having you pray for them, entreat the Lord for me, as Pharaoh said. But, are their hearts turned towards the Lord? Not usually. They can. Anyway, example after example through all of this that we see in everyday life today. We need to close. We're a few minutes late. Let's pray. Father, thank you again for recording all this for us and preserving it, that we can go back and see, thousands of years ago that you work in the same ways back then as you do now, and people react to you the same way as they do now. You're still God. You never change. You're perfect. Why would you? Thank you, Lord, for seeing each one of our sin, our sinful condition, and sending Jesus to the cross that we can be forgiven. We just thank you so much for that. You're holy, you're righteous, you're good. Just praise you for who you are. Thank you for the time you've given us. In Jesus' name, amen.